Hey guys, Tanner here with a Wednesday devotion. I hope this video finds you healthy, safe, and happy. Here in Kentucky, we're transitioning into fall. And in Kentucky, we really get to experience seasonal weather and the scenery changes, unlike some of our friends in other parts of the country with less exaggerated seasons. I don't know if you're like me, but I love the transition of seasons, the changing of pace. You know, fall, it brings about cooler weather and the changing of leaves. As you can see behind me, the leaves begin to change and fall off, and fall leads us into several of our favorite holidays. So many people all around the country decorate their houses for the changing of seasons, for different holidays. They change the appearance of their homes to match whatever season they are going into. You know, out with one season, in with another. They change up their environment to get rid of the old so they can then embrace the new that they're heading into. The Bible, in fact, actually talks about the changing of seasons, and it says there's a season for anything and everything. In Ecclesiastes 3, verses 1 through 8, it says this: "For everything there's a season, and a time for every matter under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up what is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to cast away, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace." If only we could embrace the changing of seasons in our lives as we've grown accustomed to embracing the changes of seasons within our climate. It's been said that the only constant thing in life is change. But unfortunately, change is the one thing we all seem to want to resist. God has planned each of the seasons in our lives like a skilled farmer. He knows when to plant so that He can harvest at its perfect time according to His plan. I believe that God's desire is to do us only good. And because of that desire, He enjoys each and every season of our life knowing the outcome. Jeremiah 29:11 says this: "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope." So if we truly believe that God has planned each and every season in our life according to His plan and His purposes for our good, why are we so prone to resist the plan that God has for us in the season that we currently find ourselves in? It's like when it's summer, we want fall. When it's fall, we want winter. When it's winter, we get tired of the cold and we want spring only to lead us back into summer. We're never satisfied with the season we currently find ourselves in. When we're single, we might want to be married. When we're married, we suddenly want children. When we have children, we can't wait until they turn 18 and move out of our house. And then suddenly when that's done, we begin to empty nest and we want them to return home. Think back to the children of Israel that we've discussed previously. God delivered them out of 400 years of slavery, delivered them from their enemies and provided His protection, only to be thanked with their constant murmuring and complaining. It's as if He couldn't do enough. Like spoiled children, they continually demanded more. But no matter what God did and how He provided for them, it was not enough. It seems as if they wanted what we truly want. They wanted control of their own life, their own season, and their own circumstances. They didn't want to be dependent on a all-knowing but invisible God. An invisible God whose plans for them were that we read about in Jeremiah 29:11. Those plans were for good and for their good and their future. And as a result, an entire generation perished before receiving their promised inheritance. You see, the wilderness journey they found themselves in was not a picnic, but it was an adventure into the unknown. It was a changing of seasons like we're talking about. But the Lord, He knew the way through their wilderness the same way He knows the way through yours. He knew what they needed in their season the same way as He knows what you need in yours. You see, God, He ushers in the seasons of our lives. And not only does He usher them into our lives for us to deal with, but He brings them in and then He walks alongside us through it. He only desires that we embrace Him and the season that He has us in and what He's doing in our lives with faith and with gratitude. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 18 says this: "Rejoice always. Pray without ceasing. Give thanks in all circumstances, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus for you." You see, Christian, God, He's always working. We can trust that He's always working, even when there's nothing to be seen, feel, or heard. Trust that He's working. Like in the season of planting, when there's no harvest to be had. God's not sitting idly by. Instead, He's watering, He's nurturing, He's fertilizing, He's preparing you for a harvest that will be had according to His time and His plans. Trust that He's working today. Maybe you're celebrating because you find yourself currently in the season of harvest. If so, comment below. Let us know what God's doing in your life so we can celebrate with you. Or maybe you're in that painful season of pruning, the season of difficulty and hard times where you don't exactly see what God's doing. Things are being removed from your life and you don't know why. Trust that God, He's the one doing that pruning. He's doing it, although painful, for your good, to prosper you and to give you a future and a hope. You see, the pruning, it must be done so that you can bear much fruit later on. So when you find yourself in that season, trust God. Allow yourself to be pruned so that you can bear the type of fruit and as much fruit as He wants you to in the future. You can trust God to do what He needs to do in your life today because He did exactly what He needed to do in your life yesterday and the day before. You see, God, He's always faithful and He's never changing. So we can trust that if it's happening in our life, God's a part of it. So during this season, this transition we currently find ourselves in, let's determine ourselves to count our blessings each and every day, as God does. Let's be thankful that God in His infinite wisdom planned our lives and leads us through many fruitful seasons of harvest. Instead of wishing we're in a different season, let's celebrate the one we currently find ourselves in. Let me close with this out of Galatians. Galatians chapter 6, verse 9 says, "And let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up." So let me encourage you today, Christian. Do not give up. Embrace the season you're in and allow God to do the work. I'll see you next week.